Alright, so I'm going to run through this material very quickly. I assume if you're working on this at this point, you have a firm grasp of all your pentatonic scales and all 12 keys and in all positions and all directions on the guitar. So let's just get right to it. Basically, the first thing we're going to look at is the natural minor and Ionian situation for basic major and minor chords. What I've done here, if you look at the chart on the screen right now, is I've outlined the 3 available pentatonic scales for basic, minor, and major chords in their natural form. So in other words, what I'm doing is I'm deriving these 3 pentatonic scales out of the major scale and applying them to the natural minor chord in that scale and the Ionian chord, the 1 chord in that scale. You can look at the chart and you can see how each tone relates to the chord that it's being played over, so I don't think I have to really go into that too much. But what I do want to point out is, although it looks like quite a complicated thing on the screen, it's very, very simple. Now, what I simply do when I'm thinking about what I'm wanting to play out of these particular scales is I just base everything off the root of the chord. So for instance, when I'm in A minor and I want to play the pentatonic sound but still keep the natural minor feel, I simply think to myself, okay, I can play A minor pentatonic over the chord because that's the root, and I can go up a 4th and play the D minor, or I can go up a 5th. And now the chord that really relates to that, of course, is the C major scale. So you could do the same thing. You could think, okay, what's available to me? The A minor pentatonic, obviously, because it's the same as the C major pentatonic. And then from there, you could say up a 4th D minor or up a 5th E minor. Personally, the way I think is I reduce everything down to its simplest form, so I don't even really think about it. I just kind of think like, okay, here's C major, and I know that all the A minor, the pentatonics I play over A minor are available to me, and then I'm just sort of conscious of the chord tones that I'm playing, and that's pretty much how I do it. Now, applying the principles that we just talked about for the natural minor and Ionian situation, we're just going to move on to the Dorian and Lydian situation, which is going to be the most common and most important relationship, I think, in jazz. So the formula is very simple. For a Dorian situation, I take the minor chord, and I know that I can play the root of that chord, the pentatonic off the root. I can play the pentatonic a 2nd above because that contains that altered tone. And I know that I can play the pentatonic a 5th above. So in this case, in A minor, I can play A minor pentatonic, B minor pentatonic, and E minor pentatonic. Now, the C chord that's going to relate to that is going to be the C major 7 sharp 11. Okay? And you can take this, if you want to call it a matrix of pentatonic scales or whatever, you can take the same matrix and apply it to that. You can look at the chart, you can see the relationship. It's very clear. So again, I use the same principles. Like when I see the C major chord or any kind of chord, and I want to play the Lydian sound, I just think of the chord that relates to it, the relative minor in its Dorian form, and I apply those scales that way. Okay, and finally we have the Phrygian situation. Not as common as the Dorian situation, but still good to know. Same principles involved here. I can play the root pentatonic, A minor in this case. If we look at just the A minor as an example, I can go up a fourth and I can go down a second. And that scale that goes down a second is particularly important because it gives you the altered tone to make the Phrygian B flat. So G minor or B flat major is going to give you the Phrygian sound. Okay, the last thing I want to do is talk about the different types of lines that you may want to create using the 3 pentatonic scales. Let's just take a look at D Dorian as an example. D Dorian, of course, would have D minor pentatonic, A minor pentatonic, and E minor pentatonic. Okay, so the first thing you might want to do is create passages which sound scalular in nature. So let's say I play a line like this. Okay, now that is a line which is addressing each pentatonic scale, but kind of in groupings of two notes per string. So the first part I played D minor. For the next string I played part of E minor. Next part A minor. Next part D minor, and then A minor for the last two strings. So that's okay, and that's one way to do it. Now, the approach that I personally like to take when improvising is a little more intervallically freer than that. So what I like to do is take groupings of 3 or 4 or 5 and create one continuous line which weaves in and out of the different pentatonics. So I'll try to improvise something slowly for you so you can see what I mean. And I think the last thing that I'm going to do is just kind of improvise through those 3 scales freely, playing whatever I want and just showing you just some different lines. And I may put an etude up on my website soon, demonstrating some lines that I like to use for these pentatonic scales, and then you guys can kind of pick them apart.